The cold wind howled through the busy city streets as Sarah hurried toward her favorite little cafe for a quick lunch. She had been coming here for years, enjoying the warmth of a hot meal and the quiet escape from her hectic job. Today, however, something felt different. As she stepped inside, shaking off the chill, her eyes were drawn to a small figure huddled outside the window. A child, no older than 7 or 8, sat on the pavement, their thin arms wrapped around their knees, staring longingly at the plates of food inside. Sarah's heart clenched. She had seen people struggling before, but there was something about this child, the quiet desperation in their eyes, the way they licked their lips at the sight of a sandwich, that made her pause. The cafe was warm and inviting, but outside, the child shivered against the biting wind. She didn't think twice. Grabbing an extra sandwich and a warm cup of soup, she stepped back out into the cold. The child flinched slightly when she approached, but didn't run. Sarah knelt down, offering the food with a gentle smile. "Here, sweetheart, you must be hungry." For a moment, the child hesitated, their big round eyes darting between Sarah and the steaming meal in her hands. Then, with a quiet, whispered, "Thank you." They took the food, clutching it as if it were the most precious thing in the world. Sarah watched as they took a careful bite, their small body visibly relaxing with the warmth of the soup. "Where are your parents?" she asked softly. The child looked down, their fingers tightening around the sandwich. "They're looking for work," they murmured. Sometimes it's hard." Sarah felt a lump form in her throat. She wanted to ask more, but she didn't want to make them uncomfortable. Instead, she sat beside them on the cold pavement, watching as they ate, making sure they knew they weren't alone. After a few moments, the child looked up at her, their expression serious. "You're really nice," they said. "Most people just walk past." Sarah smiled sadly. "I think everyone deserves kindness." The child finished their meal, then stood up suddenly. "I have to go," they said, glancing around nervously. "But thank you." Before Sarah could ask more, the child turned and disappeared down the street, vanishing into the crowd. She sat there for a long moment, her heart heavy, wondering if she had done enough. She wished she had asked more, offered more, done something that would make a real difference. Little did she know that single act of kindness would change her life forever, because the next day, 2 strangers would show up at her office, and they weren't just any strangers. They were the child's parents, and what they had to say would leave Sarah completely speechless. Sarah went about her day as usual, but something about that little child's face stayed with her. She kept replaying the moment in her mind. The way they hesitated before taking the food, the quiet way they thanked her, the nervous glance before they ran off. She wondered where they had gone, if they were safe, if they had a warm place to sleep that night. The next morning, as Sarah settled into her desk at work, she barely had time to open her laptop before a knock at the office door startled her. She turned, expecting to see a colleague, but instead, 2 unfamiliar faces stood there. A man and a woman, dressed in worn but tidy clothes. The man looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, while the woman clutched her bag tightly, her fingers trembling slightly. "Are you Sarah?" the woman asked softly. Sarah hesitated, glancing between them. "Yes. Can I help you?" The man took a deep breath. "We're sorry to just show up like this," he said, "but we had to find you. You helped our child." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. She sat up straighter, her hands resting on her desk. "Your child," the woman's eyes welled with tears. "Yesterday, you gave them food." Sarah felt a rush of relief and concern at the same time. "Oh," she whispered. "Are they okay?" The man nodded. "Yes, because of you." For a moment, no one spoke. Sarah could see the deep gratitude in their eyes. But also something else, something heavier. "We lost everything," the woman finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "We used to have a home. We had jobs. But things fell apart so fast. My husband got sick, and we couldn't afford the hospital bills. Then he lost his job, and once we couldn't pay rent, we were out on the streets." Sarah felt a lump in her throat. She had read stories like this, seen them on the news, but hearing it firsthand made it feel so much more real. "We've been trying," the man added. "I've been looking for work every day, but it's hard when you don't have an address. No one wants to take a chance on you. And our child, they've been so strong, but we can tell how hard it's been on them." Sarah swallowed hard. "I'm so sorry," she said, feeling helpless. "I wish I could do more." The woman gave a shaky smile. "You already did. You reminded our child that kindness still exists. That's something we haven't felt in a long time." Sarah was about to say something when the man reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "This is why we're here," he said, sliding it across her desk. "We wanted to give you something." Confused, Sarah picked it up and unfolded it. At first, she didn't understand what she was looking at, but then her eyes widened. This is a job offer," she murmured. The man nodded. "It's from my old boss. Before I got sick, I worked at a company that handles investments and financial planning. I built a lot of connections. When I started getting better, I reached out to one of them. They mentioned they were looking for someone with your kind of experience." Sarah's mind raced. "How do you know what I do?" The woman gave a small smile. "Our child told us where they met you. We looked you up, and when we saw your background, we realized this could be something big." Sarah stared at the paper, her heart pounding. It wasn't just any job. It was an executive-level opportunity, the kind of position she had dreamed of, but never thought she'd get. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Why would you do this for me?" The man's eyes softened. "Because you helped our child when you didn't have to. You showed kindness without expecting anything in return, and we believe that people like you should have good things happen to them." Tears burned at the back of Sarah's eyes. She had spent years working hard, trying to get ahead, feeling like she was always one step behind. And now, because of one simple act of kindness, her entire life could change. But just as she was about to thank them, the woman hesitated. "There's one more thing," she said, her voice suddenly shaky. "Something you need to know." Sarah's breath caught in her throat. "What is it?" The man exchanged a glance with his wife, then looked back at Sarah with an expression so serious it made her heart pound. "The company, the one offering you this job. There's something about it we haven't told you yet." Sarah could barely breathe as she waited for the next words to come. Whatever they were about to say, she knew it was going to change everything. Sarah's heartbeat thundered in her ears as she gripped the paper in her hands. The weight of the man's words hung in the air like an invisible force, pressing down on her. "The company," she repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. "What about it?" The woman hesitated before taking a shaky breath. "It's owned by someone who's been looking for you for a long time." Sarah's eyebrows knitted together in confusion. "Looking for me?" The man nodded. "Do you remember Mr. Lawson?" Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Of course, she remembered him. He had been her mentor years ago when she was fresh out of college, struggling to find her place in the corporate world. He had believed in her, guided her, and given her opportunities she never thought possible. But then, one day, he had to leave. He retired suddenly due to personal reasons, and she never heard from him again. "Mr. Lawson owns this company?" she asked, her voice laced with disbelief. The man nodded again. "Yes. And when I reached out to him, he didn't just remember you. He's been trying to find you for years. He said you were the most promising person he had ever worked with. And he regretted not being able to help you more back then." Sarah was speechless. Her fingers trembled slightly as she looked down at the job offer. All this time she had struggled to climb the corporate ladder, never knowing that someone from her past had been looking out for her. The woman smiled softly. "It's fate, don't you think? That a simple act of kindness led you back to someone who always believed in you?" Sarah blinked back tears. She had spent years chasing success, trying to prove herself. But in the end, it wasn't just her hard work that opened this door. It was kindness. She looked at the couple in front of her. These two strangers who had once lost everything but still found a way to give back. They had nothing, yet they had given her something priceless. An opportunity, a reminder that the world still had good people, and proof that even the smallest gestures could ripple into something life-changing. Sarah smiled, a deep, genuine smile. "Thank you," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "Not just for this job, but for reminding me what really matters." The woman wiped away a tear and nodded. "You reminded us too." Sarah reached for her phone. She had a call to make, one that could change everything. As she dialed the number on the job offer, she knew one thing for sure. Kindness had brought her here, and it would continue to guide her forward. Because in the end, the smallest act of compassion can lead to the most unexpected and beautiful moments, and Sarah's journey was just beginning.